It has captivated our attention. And here are some stats about it. 70% of adults use one of them daily. 80% of all Americans watch and listen to one, and 31% of Americans use another. What am I speaking of? I am Crystal Curry. Welcome to Curry Girl Tech Talk. Thank you for joining. Pause for a minute and take a deep breath. Imagine what our world would be like without technology. For some of us, it's not too hard because we remember the days without cell phones, without PCs and laptops in our homes, and remember a time when computers were reserved for major companies to help with back office data processing. The reality is that today, many of us cannot imagine what our world would be like without computers, much less leaving the house without that ever critical back pocket accessory called a cell phone. Our lives are so intertwined with those little devices that are actually mini computers that many of us would have a complete panic or episodic meltdown without our cell phone. There are even health implications with regard to holding our phones too close to our ears for too long. So today I'm talking about something different. It's what has captivated the attention of America's adolescent and adult population. It's the little applications installed on that ever so critical device. I'm speaking of social media platforms. 70% of adults use Facebook daily. 81% of all Americans use YouTube. 82% of them are men. 31% of all Americans use Pinterest. And 46% of them are women. All right. Though I believe that privacy and security are major areas of concern and a strategy for every technology endeavor, it seems that Gen Z and millennials have given up on any notion of privacy, as smartphones track every move and virtually all personal and financial transactions leave digital traces. I started to wonder about social norms as it relates to technology, and I came across an article about the addiction to social media. Social media addiction is described as a compulsive behavior to constantly check, post, or use social media platforms at the expense of other aspects of life. It is factual that social media companies design their algorithms to learn what people like, and the algorithm is consistently updating our feeds with reels, posts, and information in real time. Algorithm-driven content personalizes posts that users view based on their previous interactions and preferences. It takes us into the vortex, and we get in a spiral of clicking the next reel, and before we know it, an hour or two has gone by with our eyes glued to the screen. Here's a quote from Dr. Nancy DeAngelis, a director of behavioral health. Quote, "Social media platforms drive surges of dopamine to the brain to keep consumers coming back over and over again. The shares, likes, comments on these platforms trigger the brain's reward center, resulting in a high similar to the one people feel when gambling or using drugs." End quote. The dopamine is a feel-good signal, and it reinforces the need to seek that feeling again. This addiction has led many to seek compensation even from several social media platforms. Though there is no official diagnosis as a social media addiction, the excessive use of social media platforms is found to be commonplace. All right. The downsides of this social media addiction that many have written about are the neglect to one's own reality and personal relationships. Low self-esteem, having some glimpse into what others are experiencing, can give the viewer feelings of inadequacy or also an increased sense of loneliness or isolation. Other downsides are anxiety and even depression. While many have matured enough to understand that people mostly post only the best of themselves on social media, it doesn't make it any less entertaining or interesting. And then, moreover, for others, social media is a welcome escape from work or other life demands. For those who are content creators or even entertainers, celebrities, social media is a fundamental aspect of a business strategy. Using the platform to engage an audience and to get a message to them is a critical component of business. I've read where CEOs are engaging more with social platforms to maintain a consistent leadership presence, connect, and provide company updates on what's happening in real time. I believe it's actually genius, in my opinion, to use social media from a leadership perspective to engage with the employees on a consistent basis. It squashes the rumor mill and it comes straight from leadership and it keeps the leader engaged. The thing about algorithms is that even our own internal AI or business-driven processes can be customized to build our brand identity and to tailor our products and services to consumers. With all the AI algorithms ingesting all of this data, it's going to be key to help differentiate your brand so that it doesn't become another lost voice in the sea of options. Because with AI and social media and everyone using it, likely not the only brand searching these GPTs. So it's nice to see a more personalized approach. We have the best intentions to use predictive analysis to determine what products to present to a user using data from perhaps a customer purchase history. Using these algorithms based on from their previous interactions with the company help us send personalized content to them. So for instance, if they typically make purchases from the company around the same time of year, we can tailor personalized emails directly to them and send notices of discounts for things that they have purchased before. It's smart business to incentivize customer loyalty. We are obviously not attempting to distort anyone's perception of themselves by predicting their selections. We're fine-tuning our market and saying, hey, if you're going to buy it from here. We have the best offerings and we value your business. Social media is a huge part of a marketing strategy. It's not the only part of a marketing strategy. We do a lot of research into marketing and branding, how the generations are consuming products. Influencer marketing actually is another component of social media. There are influencers that help you to get your brand messages out and are a real proponent for your brand, trying it out, and make connections with consumers in a more personalized a way. And so consumers tend to rely on their opinions about products as well. All right, so here's rough estimates of how the generations consume social media, right? All right, so baby boomers tend to use social media less than younger generations. They're more likely to use Facebook and YouTube, and they tend to stay informed about global events, health, and financial news, all of that. But they still tend to rely heavily on traditional media sources for news and information. Outside of just using it for our social media strategy, as it relates to the generational gaps, boomers are on social, but you might better catch them at a local radio for advertising or even using direct mail. So X, they're more likely to use platforms like Facebook and YouTube, and they still rely on traditional media sources for news and information as well. roughly 41 to 56 years old. They use social media, but often to a lesser extent than younger generations too. And then millennials are also active on social media. Millennials are 25 to 40 now. They use a variety of platforms. They use Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, X. So there's a good portion. But Gen Z is known for being the heavy users of social media, and their age is 14 to 24. Such impressionable ages for social media content. So Gen Z uses up to 2 to 3 platforms a day. So there's a big consuming presence there, and it has captured our minds and hearts. It has our attention. All right, so I can acquiesce that we can all use some sort of balance between social media and living our realities. So what's the remedy to this? Obviously, many would suggest just minimizing our screen time. Taking a break from social media platforms every now and again would seem to be a simple solution. So once you've decided to take a break from social media, what do you replace that time with? All right, so here are some of the ways to kind of decompress if you feel like you're kind of taking in too much of social media or online a bit too much. And that can mean even just perusing other apps on your phone, not necessarily just social media apps. Okay, using that time to exercise, obviously, getting outside, enjoying a good book, and plugging off the internet and back into life and love itself. I remember some time ago, there was a post going around about things we used to do in the 80s. And it was something like, you're a child of the 70s and 80s if you, for instance, you drank from a water hose outside all summer and no one questioned it, or you played outside until it was dark and ran home when the streetlight came on. The timing that you used was actually the time that the streetlight came on instead of your Apple Watch, and you knew it was time to go home. There was a long list of just hilarious things that I could actually relate to. And I just remember those things, and remembering those not just for nostalgia, but to show the new generation creative ways to do life outside of just being glued to their phone. I believe so many relationships could be salvaged by just putting down the phone and actually talking to one another. Like, for instance, having boundaries and rules, like we're not going to use our phones at the dinner table. One example of a thing that I believe is cool is instead of sending someone to YouTube to find a recipe, is actually spending time with them to show them how to actually create the recipe. Yes, it's cool to use social media platforms to look up how to make a recipe or to cook a certain thing. Actually, I've done that several times. But one cool take on it is to actually teach a traditional recipe or a family recipe to a family member. And it's a life skill. If you're teaching a kid, they got to learn how to cook for themselves, right? And then it gives you some bonding time. So, like my nephew is supposed to teach me how to play pickleball, and I'm looking forward to it actually. It's a way to unplug and not be so connected to the internet. And I guess if you feel like maybe you're over consuming social media or that your kids are over consuming social media, you can give them a Rubik's Cube from the 80s and see if they're able to solve that. Or maybe have a challenge. Okay, you can get back on social media after you finish the Rubik's Cube challenge. But anyway, I just thought those things from the 70s and 80s were pretty funny and kept us quite busy too. But we know that social media is a key component of our social lives now, and it's integrated, deeply embedded into the way that we interact, the way that we message each other, the way that we keep up with things, even our contacts and connections. I remember I deleted my LinkedIn profile at one point, and it's the hardest time reconnecting with people because I had accidentally deleted that and I didn't track people and they weren't able to restore it. But it's real that social media helps us to stay connected with people. Obviously it's a tool. It's not, to replace our personal networking, work that we do, but it's obviously a tool that we have come to lean on to help us. But there are ways, as there are with a variety of aspects of life, having a balance to our social media consumption seems a way to go. So ironically, I'm going to ask you to go to my social media page and let me know what your thoughts are about the consumption of social media. Do you agree that we overconsume? Let me give you some stats first before we get into the poll about it. But the stats are that 70% of U.S. adults use Facebook daily. 81% of all Americans use YouTube, and 82% of them are men. 31% of all Americans use Pinterest, and 46% of them are women. 59% of adults use Snapchat daily. 59% of adults use Instagram daily. 46% of adults use X daily. 54% of adults use YouTube daily. So those are the stats about our social media consumption. So let me know what your thoughts are about these platforms and how you use them in your business plans and models. Do you feel like we overconsume? Do you feel like our relationships are taking a backseat because we're so intertwined into social media and TikTok and all this stuff? Or do you think it's just a way of connecting? The internet has given us, obviously, as I talked about in the Web3 series, is transformational in the ways that we're able to connect globally through the internet and through these social media apps, just making it more convenient for us to get and stay connected with one another. Let me know what your thoughts are. How often do you use social media? Do you use it sporadically or are you an avid user? I like to know what your opinions are about all of this. You can go to social media and use my handle across them is @CurryGirlTechTalk and engage with me and let me know. I love connecting with you guys. And I think social media is an awesome way to do that. I'm a big techie. You guys know that. I am a big proponent of tech and actually love social media and the ways that we use it. But these are just some examples of ways that we can use time to unplug from our day-to-day, prioritizing relationships and connect back to real life. This was a light episode of Curry Girl Tech Talk. I hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think. I'm going to post a poll online. I am Crystal Curry. Take care.